Hello, it's Sonia here with a Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is Tuesday, and that means it's Tunisian Tuesday. And I am using my eye hook or 5.5mm hook, and we're going over just some Tunisian techniques. We're going to be talking about yarn overs. And I have some projects where I do regular yarn overs, and I have some that I do what I call is yarn over purlwise. So I thought I would do a video going over that today. So I've already gotten started on a little swatch of just 10 stitches, I think. Let me double check. Yes, 10. And I thought we would go over just yarn overs. So what are yarn overs used for? Well, they could be used to actually create a stitch. They could be used to do some increasing. So let's say, why don't we go over some yarn overs for increasing? So let's say we have 10 stitches here. We want to have 12. So we would need to do 2 yarn overs. So we'll work in Tunisian simple. So I'm going to work just Tunisian simple here, and I'm going to do a yarn over. So a regular yarn over, if you do regular crochet, we yarn over all the time for like double crochet, triple crochet, half double crochet, you know, doing cluster stitches. We yarn overs all over the place. So it's the same thing with Tunisian crochet. You just do boop, you know, yarn over. So we're going to yarn over, and we're going to continue to work Tunisian simple across. And now we're going to do another yarn over because we want to have 12 stitches instead of 10. So I'm just going to do another yarn over and finish up my row, my forward pass. So we should have 12 loops on our hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so now we are going to work these off. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across. Okay, so what can happen when you're working yarn overs in Tunisian crochet is sometimes your yarn overs can kind of get lost in your work. So especially if you're working some more intricate stitches, they can tighten up and kind of almost disappear. So some tricks that you can do if you're really having trouble, especially if you're working with finer yarn. So here, let me show you. So let's say we're going to work a regular Tunisian simple stitch row. So we're working that first stitch. Now we are at our yarn over. So as I'm pulling, like if there's a little bit of tension on my work, you can see like that guy, it's almost disappearing. So what you can do, if you have a project that is a lot of yarn overs, and again, if you're using finer yarn, let's say you're making a shawl or something, you can use stitch markers to actually mark those stitches. So what I would do is right after the yarn over is made, take like a little scrap of yarn and pull that, just kind of wrap that on the stitch to mark it. It's like a little lifeline there. So you can see that this is your yarn over so that it doesn't get lost in your work. And then, you know, you're wondering why your project isn't looking right because you lost your yarn over. So now I'm going to continue because I want to have 12. So I'm going to work that Tunisian simple and that yarn over, and I'm going to continue across. And sometimes, as I said before, yarn overs can just be used to create stitches. And if you're doing a yarn over, you're adding a stitch, so then usually after what comes of it is some kind of a decrease or together stitch. So here's the next one, and you know, it kind of looks a little goofy and it can kind of disappear. So as I said before, use your stitch markers to help you mark that stitch, especially if you're not familiar with yarn overs in Tunisian crochet. So I really highly recommend using stitch markers, scraps of yarn, actual stitch markers, you know, whatever you can, a bobby pin, whatever you can find. So we should have 12 loops on our hook, so we can check. So we do indeed have 12, so we'll work those off. And that is the traditional yarn over. And so, as I said earlier, there is something called a yarn over purlwise that I do. I haven't really seen it in a lot of other patterns with Tunisian crochet, but I don't think I've invented the wheel by any means. I didn't know what else to call this yarn over. So what do I mean about a yarn over purlwise? So let's say we want to increase again, and we want to do this next row in purl stitches. So to do a purl stitch, you need to have your yarn in front. So that next stitch is going to be a purl stitch. And let's say we want to increase again. So we need to do a yarn over, but we're working all of our stitches in purl. So you need to have your yarn set up so that you can do your next stitch. So if you do a regular yarn over like this, you can't do the purl stitch. It's because your yarn has to be in front like that. So you have to set yourself up so that you can create that stitch. So to do the yarn over purlwise, you have your yarn in front like you're working a purl. Then you're going to take your yarn to the front of the hook, to the back, and bring it forward again. And now you're set up, ready to go to work your purl stitch. So that is what I call is a yarn over purlwise. So we're going to continue to purl all the way across. And if you're a knitter, this might not seem so foreign to you because, you know, when you're knitting, you do have to place your yarn in certain places so that you can create, especially with purling, the purl stitch. But when you're crocheting, you don't usually have the yarn in front like that. Okay, we are going to work that next purl. So now I want to do another purl stitch here, but I need to yarn over purlwise again so I can do that because I want to increase and I want to work a purl stitch. So I need to yarn over purlwise, so my yarn is in my front. I'm going to go in the front to the back to the front again. So I am set up, ready to go to work that purl stitch. So now we should have 14 loops on our hook. So 14, so yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row. Now there might be some projects where you do a bunch of yarn overs, so yarn overs can really make some fun stitches with Tunisian crochet, but it's just important to know the components of the stitch, how they work, what they look like, how to do them. So if you come upon a pattern of mine where it says yarn over purlwise and you're a little unsure, that's why I thought I would do this video. So when you're doing yarn over purlwise, like, they really can disappear. So let's work another row of purl, and we should have 14 stitches. So my first stitch is the purl. So when I'm pulling that, see, that's my yarn over right there, like, she's just about gone. So that's why it's important to understand that, and if you're having trouble finding it, you can take your stitch marker, like so for down here. So here is, let me get my knitting needle, my little pointer that I like, my double point. So here is the yarn over right here. Like, it's, so when I work this stitch here, you can see it's literally making that yarn over disappear. So if you're new with this, I highly, highly, highly recommend, especially when you're yarning over purlwise, to use a stitch marker. So I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to take my hook, take that scrap piece of yarn, pull that through. So now I know that is a stitch that I need to work in. And I know that I need to work in this one, so it's real tiny, but there is that yarn over. So I'm going to insert my hook there and work that stitch. So it can be kind of a drag at first, like popping in a bunch of stitch markers, but once you get more familiar with yarn overs, then you might not need to use the stitch markers. But if you want your project to be successful by working the right amount of stitches and working in the correct stitches, then I do really recommend stitch markers. And as I said before, you can use scraps of yarn like I'm using, because I always lose my stitch markers. I had a whole bunch of them and I don't know what happened to them. Or you can use scraps of yarn, which I always have. So I'm working this stitch, and you can see that yarn over is almost non-existent. It kind of just disappears into your work, but I know it's there because I have my stitch marker. I'm pulling on that. That is my stitch that I need to work in. So I'm just working that purl stitch. I could slide that out. And then I have another one here. And then working my last stitch here for my forward pass. And again, we should have 14 stitches on our hook. And we do. So then you just work these off. Then we'll work these, our regular return pass, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row. Okay, so, and as you can see here with our little swatch that we made, get that out of the way, that obviously we've made this bigger because we started off with 10 stitches here and now we've increased up to 14 doing the yarn overs. And there's other ways of increasing, but I just wanted to highlight yarn overs because I do have some patterns that go over that have yarn overs in them, and I just wanted to clarify the difference. So if you see a pattern that says yarn over in Tunisian crochet, do the regular yarn over like you would if you were working normal crochet, like, you know, a half double crochet. But if it does say yarn over purlwise and you're unsure what that means, you know, I just showed you, you need to make sure that your yarn is in, sorry, you need to bump the camera. You need to make sure that your yarn is in front so that you can execute that purl stitch. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into yarn overs and how they work in Tunisian crochet. So I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.